Hi, folks. I'm back without Jimmy, only because today I'm going to answer a few questions that were asked of me a number of times. So I have about 10 of them. I'm going to answer one or two or three, and that's why I don't have Jimmy here. But before I start, I want to let you know that Freddie Hudson's book is out. It came out yesterday or 2 days ago, and it's already the bestseller in horse racing and in juries on Amazon. Amazing! It's out less than 2 days. It's already the bestseller. Let me just tell you a little bit of what it's about, and it's. I've been in a business my whole life, and this what happened in this book, what he explains, it's basically from court records and everything. It's unbelievable how. Well, I'm not going to tell you too much about it. I'm just going to read what he asked me to promote his book. The book, Superfecta Trial, is a story of an injustice done to the sport of harness racing. The whole thing was politically motivated by the FBI and the prosecution. The Superfecta Trial book gives the details of how and why all the 13 drivers why they were acquitted. From the account and reasons why all Superfecta races were suspended at all New York tracks in April of 23. In other words, when they first started this investigation, when the FBI notified the racetracks, instead of continuing with the Superfecta in the last race, they shut it down right away, and therefore that whole trial, basically, from what I understand, and I don't want to give too much away, was based on hearsay rather than the racetrack. Let it keep going and get some solid information. The Superfecta Trial fills in all the blanks and reports. This reports the story as it was recorded in the courts and worldwide media. In other words, everything in this book is factual. He has all the transcripts from all the court reports and all the newspapers, and which led to the acquittal of all the drivers. And if you read the book, you can hear what the prosecutors, defense attorneys, witnesses, judge, the jury, the fans, all the race commission had to say. It's all legit, right from court records. All in the Superfecta Trial book by Freddie Hudson. It's all there. Freddie is scheduled for book signings now, and it looks like he'll be at Suffolk OTB, at Jake's 58 Casino and Hotel, Rosecroft Raceway, and several other tracks starting in late December. Anyone wishing to order the book can do so on Amazon, or for signed copies, just email to RRTrotting at outlook.com. That's RRTrotting at outlook.com. Also visit www.ustrots.com. And that's it. That's it for Freddie. The book is out. I haven't read it yet, but I talked to him a lot about what's in it, and it's an amazing story. All right, now I have 5 or 6 questions here. I have about 1,000 of them, but I'm going to try to get to them all. The first question is, and people keep texting me, talk about the card game that I mentioned. I guess I mustn't mention the card game that I got robbed in. It was at Freehold, so I'll tell you about that real quick. When I was racing at Freehold, it was 1971, right after Lincoln Downs. I went to Freehold for that meet. And Freehold race in the daytime. After the races, we either went to Yonkers or we shot that. We went to a Miller's bungalow and we played cards. And because I am how I am and have absolutely no patience, and I played every hand. I never folded. I just played to the end. Therefore, I never won. One night, I was winning, and I was winning, and I was winning. And it's a big game. I mean, every pot was 2, 3, 4, 5,000. It was a pretty big game. So for the first time in my life, I was winning. And everybody just kept playing and playing. And finally, there was a guy called John Heller that played with us. And he said, look, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Larry's finally winning. Let's pack it in. So everybody agreed, okay, one more time around. There were 7 players. Sitting on my left is Jerry Baldacchino. Now, the people who are in the horse business know who Jerry Baldacchino was. Jerry Baldacchino was a trainer driver at Freehold. And he said to me, we're going to play one more round. Give me 500. So I count out the 500, and I just like this is just how it went. I count out the 500, and I said, here. Just as I give it to him, the door, which is right here on my right, breaks open. 3 black guys come running in. Now, at that point, I had all the money in the game. I had 10,000 in one pocket, 20 in another pocket. I had all the money in the game. It was an unbelievable night. First time in my life I ever won playing cards. And I count up to 500. Here, Jer. Door kicks open simultaneously. One black guy runs over there, another over here, and the other one has standing right at my head, right here with the gun on my head. He says, everybody put their hands on the table. As he's saying that, Jerry pushes the 500 back to me. He says, here's the money I owe you. Simultaneously, I pushed it back and said, give it to me tomorrow. Now, all of this is going on while the guy got a gun at my head and the other 2 guys have guns put over everybody's head. And naturally, when I went to him, I says, give it to me tomorrow. The guy hits me in the head with the gun. And I got so mad, there's nothing I could do because I turned around like this and the other 2 guys have the guns pointed. And I said, here, 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 put the fucking gun away and leave us the fuck alone. Well, they made us take all our clothes off. They put them all in a bag and the pillowcase, and they left. Frank Gracia was there, and Frank Gracia put a towel around himself, and he walked over to the bowling alley that was open till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was, I forgot the name of it. Howell Lanes. I don't know. I forgot the name. Anyway, the cops come and anyway, that's the card game story. I never played a game of cards after that. And so that's the card. Oh, and they asked me, did you ever catch the guys? There were 3 black guys. Well, what happened was about 2 weeks later, there was this Chinese kid that worked at the track. He was a groom, wheeler and dealer. And he come over to me and he says, for 500, I'll tell you who the guys were and where they hang out. And I says, it's too late. I says, do you think I'm going to walk into a black neighborhood, look for these guys? Do you think, number 1, I'll come out alive? Number 2, you think they'll still have the money to give to me? And you think they're going to admit it? Do me a favor, get the fuck out of here. And that was it. That's it. That's the card game story. Never be repeated again. Okay. Somebody else asked me about a horse I raced for Bobby Donofrio called Whitewood Perry. And the only reason I remember his name, I remember very few horses, even the ones that I trained, but I didn't train this horse, Whitefoot Perry. And the reason it came up was because he won by more lengths than any other horse in the history of racing. I win by almost a quarter of a mile. In fact, after the race, when I was coming back to the winner's circle, they were just coming down the stretch. Bobby Donofrio trained this horse. It was a trotter, and he couldn't keep him flat. Very, very fast, but couldn't keep him flat trotting. And he asked me to help him out. I helped him out. He put me down the drive, and he won by almost a quarter of a mile. And okay, that's the Whitewood Perry story. Let me tell you about this story. This was, they asked me about that beautiful girl one day. Everybody was watching me. She'd come out of the race office. She was crying. She had her eligibility papers in her hands. And she was crying. And I was just pulling up. Ralph Swalski was the race secretary at the time. So this girl was gorgeous. Unbelievable body, beautiful face, and she's crying. And I was at that time, I'm 40 years old, 45 years old, whatever I was, 35. And, a guy is a guy, and I go up to her and I says, listen, I said, are you crying? Are you all right? Anything I can do for you? And she says that the race secretary won't let me race my horse here. I don't understand why. And so I says, give me the papers. I was good friends with Ralph, the race secretary. I says, give me the papers. I says, I'll just wait right here. I was looking to nail her. That's what I was looking to do. So anyway, I bring the papers in. As I'm walking into his office, I'm looking at the papers. And it's in the papers said, from last year, it said fell, did not finish, fell. Which means every race he made a break, and every race he couldn't handle it, he fell down. So I bring the papers in. I says, I knew I got myself in a jackpot this time. So I bring the papers into Ralph Swalski, the race secretary. I says, Ralph, I says, you got to do me a favor. You got to give me a chance to straighten this horse out and qualify him. He says, she was just in here. This horse can't race here. Every time he tried to qualify, he fell down. He broke bikes. He hurt drivers. He says, Larry, I love you, but I can't. I says, well, how about if I get him qualified, or if I get him a couple of good lines on him at another racetrack? He says, if you do that, you can race him here. So about a week later, 2 weeks later, I don't remember exactly, I fooled with this horse, and I got him it was a pacer. I got him pacing really good. I found out all the problems and everything, and with the equipment, and that was it. Now, about a week later, they were having a races at Goshen, so I entered him at Goshen, and I just went around the racetrack with him. I could have won every one of them races. I trained him 5-6 seconds faster to a jog cart faster than the races that he was in at Goshen went. All right, I bring the papers back. Now he has 2 good solid lines on him, finished 3rd and 4th or something like that. And Ralph says, I put him in to go. Ralph calls me in the office. Larry Rolla to the racing office. I go in there. He says, I told you about this horse. I says, you told me that if I took him to another racetrack and put 2 good lines on him, I could race him here. There's 2 good lines, and Goshen is not Monticello. He says, but this is the 4th of July weekend. I says, well, I don't care what weekend is in. You said you made a deal, and that's the deal. I had the whole thing schemed after I straightened him out. I straightened him out in one morning, and I knew the 4th of July weekend they had the biggest handle there. It was the middle of the summer. It was perfect. And at that time, I was fixing races. So he lets the horse. He lets the horse race. Post positions come out. I drew post 8. Post 1 was a 3 to 5 shot. Anthony Del Piore was driving him. It was a maiden, but they had no maiden races, so the condition was either non-winners of 2 or C2. I think it was non-winners of 2, maybe, because this horse was a maiden, because he never even finished the race. He fell down all the time. So I get post 8. Program comes out, and I'm sure somebody out there has the program for this, and that's why I'm saying it, and also the program for Whitewood Perry, the horse I just mentioned before, because there's all you guys up there that have all these programs. I wish you could find this program. He has post 8, 100 to 1 in the morning line. Del Piore's horse, who won his maiden race, by 10 lengths. It's 3 to 5, 4 to 5 in the morning line. I go to Del Peori. He had a farm. And I says, listen, this horse is good, ain't he? He says, real good. He can't lose. He'll win by 100 lengths. I says, will you take 3,000 to be worse than second? He says, Larry. I says, how about 4,000? He says, Larry. I says, listen, just get him beat. You got the rail. Get away 5th or 6th. Get locked in. And anyway, I got up to 5,000 or 6,000, and I convinced him. I says, you could win next week. So he takes the 6,000 because the purse is only, I think, $1,100 or $1,000. So even if he wins, he gets 500. I'm giving him 5,000, and he could win that following week. Anyway, the race goes off. I have the 8-hole. I shoot right to the top, and I'm in front by 2-3 lengths all the way around. In the meantime, before the race, the girl comes in the paddock with her husband. So my whole balloon busted because she shows up with her husband. So I tell her, I says, listen, I says, this horse will win today. And she's all excited and everything else. And the husband says, who do you like for second? I says, the one horse. He's 3 to 5. He'll be second. I said, but you'll be 100 to 1, so the number should be a good number. So they leave the paddock, and the race goes off, and I fix the race. I got Del Peori dead. Brad Berry had a horse in there, and all you guys will find the program, I'm sure, and you'll see the guys that were in there. Del Peori had the 1-hole. Bradbury had the 3 or 4-hole. Catello Manzi was in there. I never bothered him. And there were 2 or 3 other guys. Anyway, the race goes off. At the top of the stretch for the finish, I'm in front by 5. I'm winning easy. And all of a sudden I hear the crowd roar. And I forget who it was. It was either Catello's horse made a break and scattered the field, and the only one left standing was the 8-horse and Del Peori. And Del Peori finished second. I blew my money. The girl gave me a big hug and a kiss, and that was the story of the beautiful girl that come down the steps at the race office. Now, just one more thing, and then I'm going to get to the last question, which is going to be about the lacage show. Everybody in horse racing knows Ronnie Gerfein. Ronnie Gerfein was a Hall of Famer. Everybody knew him. He's the only trainer to win 3 Hamiltonian races using the same driver, the same decade, at the same track, amongst many, many other stakes winners. He was just unbelievable. And he was a good friend. And he tells this story, and unfortunately, we lost him last year. I was lucky enough to have dinner with him about a week before he passed. I had dinner with him, and nobody knew this, but I think he had a brain tumor. And right after we had dinner, soon after that, he left. I think he went to his kids or somebody, and he passed away shortly after that. But he was a great Hall of Famer, a good friend. And he always tells this story, so I'm going to tell it. Years ago, it was in the middle of the 70s. I was stable at Monticello, and he was up there. But at that time, nobody knew who he was. He was always fooling around with young horses, couldn't win a race, didn't do nothing, just there. He was married to a wealthy girl. I think his family was kind of wealthy, so he was able to maintain what he had, brown and white colors. But he was, nobody really liked him. He was an arrogant kind of guy, but I got along with him great. One day he comes to me and he says, Larry, he says, I need you to do me a favor. I says, what is it? He says, I have a horse in freehold. He's in a stake race down there. I think it was a sire stake race down there in freehold. He said, and I just got him qualified down there, but I need a driver. Would you drive him for me? And I said, sure. I come to find out that was the horse 2 weeks before in a stake race. He was a trotter, 3-year-old trotter, but when he made a break, he couldn't handle it. He couldn't stay up. He went down. And he went down. That was the horse Vernon Dancer was driving. Vernon Dancer, Stanley Dancer's brother. Everybody knows that. It was a bad, bad accident, and Vernon broke his leg in 5 places, and nobody wanted to drive the horse. They qualified him very, very careful, but the guy wouldn't drive him. So I went down there to drive him, and I win. And so Ronnie tells everybody that the beginning of his fame started with me driving a horse called Some Network in a stake race at Freehold Raceway. So that's the story about Ronnie Gerfein. Now, one more question I was asked. Some guy sends me a question that how did a guy like you, meaning me, and all the people I was involved with, and all the trouble I was in, and all the mob guys I was hanging out with and involved with, how did I ever get into lacage? Well, let me tell you how that happened. And we're going to end it with this story. A good friend of mine, Al Leone, come to me one day. He was a movie producer. He was from Italy. He had offices in Rome. And he come to me one day and he says, take a ride with me to California. He says, I want to buy, and I'll put you in action with me with this, because I need somebody to handle some of my affairs while I'm in Europe. And we were going to go out. We went out to buy Judy Garland's library. I think she did 25 TV shows. And she did 25 TV shows, and Al wanted to, and she died. Sid Luft, her husband, owned that property. And we were going to go out there to meet with Sid Luft and buy the library because Al had it pre-sold to Homebox, I think, or one of them networks. So we go out there and we meet with Sid Luft, and we offered to buy him. Now at that time, our attorney was. Oh, I have it someplace. I don't know where I have it, but I have it. And he told us, the attorney told us that we shouldn't get involved because there was a mob guy, Genovese guy, that came down with 300,000 and gave him the 300. Dan Marino, that was the guy. He's a heavyweight in the Genovese family, and he gave Sid Luft 300,000 for that property, and so we flew back to Brooklyn, and we met with him in a diner on 88th Street and 4th Avenue, I think. There was a diner there, and we met with him, and sure enough, he had one of his guys go out there to buy that library and other things from Sid Luft for 300,000, and we were told that was true, and so we went back to California, paid off the lawyer, and Hal Lipton was the attorney. His daughter was Peggy Lipton. She played one of them TV shows back there. She was married to Quincy Jones. So we went back, we paid off the attorney, and while we were in California, I stayed there. So when I stayed there, I ran into Lou Paciocco, who I knew from Harlem way back. And he had the show An Evening at Lacage. And I spent 3 years with him, and I think I told this story before. He had a bunch of cafe LAs. He got very involved. The people he had running with the cafe LAs, he had maybe 15 or 20 of them. They never paid the taxes for years, and he got himself really jammed up. But I got somebody to lend him money to get out of that problem, and he wanted to give me a finder's fee, and I wouldn't take the finder's fee, but he did give me permission to have my own show called An Evening at Lacage, which is a high-end female impersonator show. And and he would help me put the whole thing together. We would audition all the people at his club on La Cienega Boulevard in California, in L.A. And that's what we did for the next 6 months. We auditioned, and we were ready to go. I found a place in Kissimmee, right across the street from Disney World. I did a whole podcast on that. So if you go look at that Lacage podcast, you'll see the whole story. It's quite an interesting story what happened. So that's how I got involved. So what I'm going to do now, so I'm just going to give you a peek. The show is about 2 hours long. What I did back then is we filmed one of the shows, just to have it, and across the thing we just put down just for our own use. And it's blurry. It's not real. It's not really good film, but it's going to give you an idea what the show was like. It's 9 minutes long. I think you'll get a kick out of it because I'm asked at least 100 times, what kind of show is it? How could a drag show not be a terrible thing? And even though I said it was the longest running show in Las Vegas at the Riviera over 30 years and at Bally's in Atlantic City, they all still say, hey, what are you doing with them gay guys and all of that? And I lived with them for 3 years. They are what they are. And I put this show together, and here's a little clip. It's 9 minutes long. My friend Tom said it's too long, but I'm begging him to keep the whole clip in there because it's just 9 minutes out of a 2 hour show, just to give you an idea of what it was like, and I think you'll like it.
At Lacage.
Here at Lacage, we live life, how shall I put it, on an angle. Take a deep breath, a sip of champagne, and open your eyes. What do you see? It's rather gaudy, but it's also rather grand. And while the waiter pats your check, he'll kiss your hand. The clever gigolos romance the wealthy matrons at Lacage.
Good evening, it's the MC in perpetuity of Lacage Ball, the amazing Gypsy.
You something. What the hell would a middle-aged grandfather be doing in this size 7/8 dress? Cash, man.
We've all been looking at it.
My mom and I will live alone. A grand apartment is our home. In a fair home towers. I have to keep me company. 2 cats, a dog, a parakeet. Some plants and flowers. I help my mother with the chores. I wash, she dries, I do the floors. We work together. I shop and cook and sew a bit. Though mom does too, I must admit, I do it better. At night I work in a strange bar, impersonating every star. I'm quite deceiving. The customers come in with doubt and wonder what I'm all about. But live believing, I do a very special show where I am nude from head to toe. After stripteasing, each night the men look so surprised. I change my sex before their eyes. Tell me if you can, what makes a man a man? My masquerade comes to an end when I go home to bed again, alone and friendless. I close my eyes and think of him and fantasize what might have been. My dreams are endless. We love each other, but it seems the love lives only in my dreams. It's so one-sided. But in this life I must confess, the search for love and happiness is unrequited. I ask myself, what have I got, and what I am and what I'm not. What am I giving? Then answers come from those who make the rules that some of us must break just to keep living. I know my life is not a crime. I'm just a victim of my time. I stand defenseless. Nobody has the right to be the judge of what is right for me. Tell me if you can, what makes a man a man?
Ladies and gentlemen, here she is now, Miss Patti LaBelle. The tourists are come here to look at the diva. Ladies and gentlemen, the legend herself, Miss Diana Ross.
If you need me, call me. No matter where you are, no matter how far, just call my name. I'll be there in a hurry. On that you can depend and never worry.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Whitney Houston.
Susan Isaac, and Sandy Mooney. As Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson, one of the boys, Pia Van Doren. What makes a man, Tim Dunn. As Whitney Houston, Nick Creighton. As Prince, Frank Moore. As Sammy Davis Jr., Ron Pritchard. Etienne. As Marilyn Monroe, Christopher Morley. As Dolly Parton and Diana Ross, David Michaels. As Madonna, Julian Viva. As Aretha Franklin, Eddie Fields. Your hostess and MC for the evening, the amazing Gypsy.
Now, what'd you think? Send in your questions or your answers or your comments about the Lacage show and anything else I talked about today. Jimmy will be back next week for all you girls that asked for him. And that's it. I'll see you next week.